Welcome to Infinite Universe with interesting episode. James Brolin, the man who once kept a journal of every single day spent with Barbra Streisand, is now facing the hardest chapters of his life. The couple, who had been deeply in love and shared countless memories, are now going through a very tough time. He once proposed to Barbra 3 times before she finally said yes, showing how persistent and devoted he was. But now things are different. Recently, he told producers that he couldn't take on any new projects at the moment. Their lives are changing. After years of keeping separate bank accounts, they are finally combining their finances. This decision comes at a time when medical bills are piling up, following the celebration of their 25th anniversary. It seems like they are now facing their biggest challenge as a couple. According to people in Hollywood, Brolin even turned down a $2 million acting role just so he could stay home. What lies ahead for him may be one of the most emotional and heartbreaking parts of his journey. James Brolin was not always James. He was born Craig Kenneth Brolin on July 18, 1940, during a heatwave in Los Angeles when the temperature reached 103 degrees. His father, Henry, was a successful contractor who barely made it to the hospital in time, arriving just 12 minutes before Craig was born. Henry was strict and ran his household like a machine. From the age of 4, Craig had daily chores and even weekly evaluations of his behavior. His mother, Helen, had once worked as a film extra, but she kept that fact a secret from Craig because she wanted him to focus on school and not get distracted by dreams of Hollywood. As a child, Craig was very quiet. This was partly because he suffered from severe asthma. When he was 7, he had to stay in the hospital for 45 days. But despite his health issues, he was very intelligent. At the age of 9, he managed to take apart and put back together his father's watch. His teachers were impressed by his talent with mechanical things. However, nobody could have guessed just how much of an impact James Dean would have on him. When Craig was 15 years old, he watched the film East of Eden, starring James Dean. That movie changed his life. For 6 months straight, every Saturday, he secretly rode his bike 17 miles to Griffith Park. There, he practiced copying James Dean's walk, voice, and style. In his room, he hid 73 James Dean clippings behind a poster. He also saved over $200 from delivering newspapers and bought an 8mm camera, which he used to make 24 silent films with kids from his neighborhood. When James Dean tragically died in a car crash, Craig was devastated. He didn't speak to anyone for 11 days. One day, Craig's drama teacher found one of his short films and secretly sent it to UCLA. To Craig's surprise, the film won an honorable mention from Nicholas Ray, the director of Rebel Without a Cause. That was the moment Craig knew he wanted to be an actor. Even though he was shy and would get so nervous that he threw up before auditions, he never gave up. In 1960, a studio told him to change his name because Brolin sounded too German. They showed him statistics proving that short names with strong sounds did better in show business. Craig didn't want to change his name, and he argued about it in 7 different meetings. But the studio insisted. They gave him the first name James because of his love for James Dean. His father didn't speak to him for more than a year after the change. His mother tried to smooth things over by mailing his new headshots to family members to explain the situation. For 214 nights, James had trouble sleeping without the help of pills. And even after all that, the studio criticized him for acting too much like James Dean, which was what they had wanted in the first place. In 1966, Brolin got small parts on the Batman TV series. At first, he played a bank teller. The director liked how he dropped the money bags, so he was given more screen time. Later, another director cast him as a villain named the Eraser, not realizing he had already been on the show. He even broke 3 ribs doing his own stunts. Actor Adam West later picked him for a 3rd role. Surprisingly, no one on the set noticed that he had already played 2 different characters. During this time, Brolin was homeless. He lived in a 1958 Chevy and used the showers at the Fox Studios gym. In 1967, Brolin's life hit rock bottom. He starred in a movie called The Cape Town Affair, which he knew would fail. He sent memos warning about the bad script and the cultural issues, but no one listened. The film flopped, and he was fired while visiting his mom in the hospital. To make things worse, Fox demanded that he return $11,400 in salary. He was broke and jobless for 18 months. To survive, he became a mechanic in Van Nuys, fixing cars for customers who didn't know he had once been a rising actor. One day, a Universal executive brought in his car and was impressed with Brolin's work and attitude. He offered him a screen test. That screen test led to the role that would change his life. Brolin was cast as Dr. Stephen Kiley on the show Marcus Welby, MD. The series began in 1969 and ran until 1976. He played a young doctor who rode a motorcycle and worked with an older partner. The show became a massive hit. In 1970, Brolin won an Emmy, and he later received 2 Golden Globe Awards. By the second season, it was the most-watched show on ABC. The show tackled serious topics such as cancer, depression, and Alzheimer's disease. One episode about homosexuality even sparked protests, but Brolin stood by the show's commitment to telling important stories. In 1972, he took on a very different role in the film Skyjacked, playing a troubled Vietnam War veteran who hijacks a plane. He acted alongside Charlton Heston. Critics praised his intense and believable performance, even though the role was very different from his calm doctor image. This proved he had range as an actor. Then, in 1973, he starred in Westworld, a science fiction movie about a theme park filled with lifelike robots. Brolin played John Blaine, a confident visitor who ends up being killed halfway through the film in a shocking twist. The movie was famous for using early digital effects, and Brolin's performance helped bring emotional depth to the story. By 1979, Brolin moved into horror. He played George Lutz in the Amityville Horror. At first, he didn't want to take the role. But while reading the script, something strange happened. His pants mysteriously fell off a chair. He saw it as a sign. The film turned out to be a huge success, making over $80 million. Brolin's portrayal of a man slowly losing his sanity reflected the stress many families felt during that time. Behind the scenes, he and co-star Margot Kidder didn't get along, but their tension helped the film's realism. In 1985, Brolin showed his lighter side with a cameo in Pee-wee's Big Adventure. He played a fake version of Pee-wee as a smooth secret agent, a playful nod to rumors that he might have once played James Bond. At the same time, he was starring in the TV show Hotel, which ran for 5 years. He played Peter McDermott, the refined manager of a luxury San Francisco hotel. Each episode featured new guests and new drama, with Brolin as the calm center. He even directed some episodes and received 2 Golden Globe nominations. During that time, he met his future wife, Jan Smithers, when she guest-starred on the show. At the time, Brolin was dealing with a painful divorce. Meanwhile, Barbra Streisand had her own difficult beginnings. She was born in Brooklyn on April 24, 1942. Her father, Emmanuel, was a respected teacher, and her mother, Diana, worked as a school secretary. They didn't earn much, and when Barbara was just 15 months old, her father died of a seizure. The family had only $250 in savings and had to move in with Barbara's grandparents. Barbara never knew her father but later found a note he had written in her baby book that read, "I have a feeling this one is going to be special." In 1949, Barbara's mother remarried. Barbara gained a half-sister, but life got even harder. Her stepfather was emotionally distant and once said he would break her spirit. By the age of 16, Barbara left home. She had no place to go and no money. For over a year and a half, she stayed wherever she could, on friends' couches, in old cots, and even on fire escapes in the summer. She had only one suitcase, which was held together with tape. Inside were 3 outfits, 2 pairs of shoes, and 12 records. Despite her struggles, she never missed a day of school. She studied in diners and libraries and worked part-time jobs for just 75 cents an hour. She earned only $17 a week and managed to survive by visiting her mother twice a week during dinner so she could eat without revealing she was homeless. Barbara wore the same coat for 3 years. She repaired it herself and even dyed it with leftover costume supplies. By 1960, she worked as an usher in a theater, earning just over $46 a week. She watched The Sound of Music more than 100 times. She also practiced her singing in the empty theater. One night, A stage manager overheard her singing. Thinking she was an understudy, he asked who she was. Barbra boldly said she was there to audition, even though she wasn't. She sang for 3 casting directors who happened to be nearby, and 2 days later, she had her first nightclub performance, earning $18 over the weekend, more than she usually made in a week. Although she was fired from the theater job for breaking the rules, she had taken her first step into show business. Barbra had never taken a single voice lesson. She taught herself to sing in subway tunnels and stairwells, using the echoes to shape her sound. That same year, she stayed with a friend named Barry Denon in a hot, cramped apartment. He encouraged her to record 3 songs using an old recorder. Barbra had to stand completely still, exactly 27 inches from the microphone. When they played back the tape, Barry was stunned. He said her voice was unlike anything he had ever heard. He played the recording for 14 people in the music industry. Some didn't believe it was real. One executive thought it had been engineered in a studio and refused to believe it was an untrained teenager. Eventually, the truth came out. That raw recording would later be preserved in the Library of Congress. In September 1960, Barbra, just 18 years old, performed on a nightclub stage wearing a $6 dress from a thrift store. Her earrings didn't match. She had already faced rejection from 7 auditions that month. Many said she looked too strange. One producer told her she had a $1 million voice but a 5-cent face. But that night, she sang Cry Me a River and followed it with a funny song. The audience was stunned. When she finished, they applauded for almost 5 minutes. For the first time in the club's history, she received perfect scores from the judges. Within 2 months, she had 23 paid gigs. She had proven that true talent could break through any barrier. In 1961, Barbra decided to change her name. She dropped the second A to make it more unique. She kept her Brooklyn accent, refused plastic surgery, and continued singing the songs she loved, even if they were odd. One freezing night, only 7 people showed up to her show. She didn't care. She performed as if the room was packed. She would not change herself to fit in, and it worked. In 1962, she got a role on Broadway in a show called I Can Get It For You Wholesale. Even with a 103-degree fever, she showed up to audition. The directors almost cut her big scene, but she fought to keep it. On opening night, the audience demanded she sing it 3 times. Though she was only a supporting character, she got all the attention in the reviews. By 1963, she released her first album. Columbia Records printed only 10,000 copies, expecting it to fail. The album had no hit songs, just ballads and show tunes. But it sold 150,000 copies in a month. Barbra had full creative control. She chose every song. She even rejected a color cover and chose a simple black and white photo instead. Barbra Streisand went against all marketing advice, but her bold choices led her to win a Grammy for Album of the Year. She even beat Frank Sinatra. Some Grammy voters were so upset by this that they quit. During her short acceptance speech, she made a powerful statement: "This isn't luck, this is what happens when you don't listen to people who don't understand your vision." Just a year later, she took on the role of Fanny Brice in the musical Funny Girl. Fanny Brice's own daughter objected to Barbra playing the role, saying she was too Brooklyn, too Jewish, and not attractive enough. When investors heard Barbra got the part, they pulled out more than $1 million. Still, Barbra gave an incredible performance, doing 867 shows and missing only 2, even performing with pneumonia. Her voice, which had a 3.5 octave range, impressed everyone, and some songs were written specifically for her. In one show, a sprinkler broke and soaked her on stage, but she continued performing. The director loved her dedication so much, he added the scene to the final production. When the show moved to London, the critics were initially harsh. But soon, demand grew so much that tickets were being sold on the black market for £150, which was a huge amount back then. In 1965, she signed a groundbreaking deal with CBS worth $5 million for 10 specials. She was only 23, but the contract gave her full creative control. CBS couldn't change anything without her approval, and they couldn't interrupt her songs with commercials. Her first special, My Name is Barbara, broke every rule in the book. She opened the show singing Alone in the Dark, which terrified executives. But 71% of people watching TV that night were tuned into her show. She won 5 Emmy Awards for it and even edited the entire program herself. The director later admitted that he simply followed her instructions. In 1968, Barbra transitioned from Broadway to Hollywood. She starred in the film version of Funny Girl, reprising the role of Fanny Brice. The movie was a massive success and became the top-grossing film of the year in the United States. Her performance earned her the Academy Award for Best Actress. It was her very first film, and she made history by tying with Katharine Hepburn, the only tie in that category's history. The film received 8 Oscar nominations and confirmed that Barbra wasn't just a Broadway star, she was now a full-blown movie star. The Library of Congress later preserved Funny Girl as a national treasure. Barbra didn't stick to just musicals. In 1972, she starred in What's Up, Doc?, a screwball comedy with Ryan O'Neal. Initially, she disliked the script and told reporters it would fail. But behind the scenes, the filmmakers reworked her character to be funnier and made O'Neal the straight man. The changes worked. The movie was a huge hit and became the 3rd biggest film of the year. Barbra earned $500,000 for the role, more than her co-star, and critics praised her comedic timing. The movie later appeared on lists of the greatest American comedies. In 1973, she starred alongside Robert Redford in The Way We Were, a romantic drama about a passionate Jewish activist and a charming writer during a politically sensitive time in America. The movie had a modest $5 million budget but made $50 million. Barbra received another Oscar nomination, and the film earned her a major Italian Film Award. The title song, which she sang, became the biggest hit of 1974, selling over 2 million copies. Years later, the song was added to the Grammy Hall of Fame. Barbra wanted even more control over her work. In 1972, she started her own production company, Barwood Films. Her first project was Up the Sandbox, a daring film about a bored housewife who escapes into wild fantasies. The movie didn't do well at the box office, but critics appreciated its feminist message. Reviewers compared her on-screen presence to classic stars like Greta Garbo. Roger Ebert said her character didn't care what anyone thought, which was rare for women in movies at that time. Then in 1976, she starred in and produced A Star Is Born. She co-wrote the film's love song, Evergreen, which became a huge success. Barbra made history by becoming the first woman to win an Oscar for composing music. The song also earned her a Grammy and a Golden Globe. Her acting performance earned another Golden Globe, and Evergreen was later ranked as one of her all-time best songs. Barbra had to fight hard for creative control, especially when she decided to direct her first movie, Yentl, in 1983. It took her 15 years to get it made. 12 studios turned her down before one finally agreed and gave her a $14.5 million budget. She disguised herself in tight bindings to play a male character and directed a mostly male crew of 168. Some crew members even bet money on her failure. But she proved them wrong. The movie earned more than $40 million. Despite this, one Oscar voter openly said he didn't vote for her just because she was a woman. At the time, only 0.5% of major studio movies were directed by women. Although Yentl received great reviews in 1984, the Golden Globes didn't nominate her for Best Director. Instead, they created a one-time category, Best Director of a Musical or Comedy. That category disappeared the next year. At the awards ceremony, Barbra politely questioned why they didn't just include her with the rest. Her situation became so well known that Congress used it as an example of gender bias in Hollywood. In 1991, Barbra returned to directing with The Prince of Tides. It took 26 drafts and 3 years to finalize the script. She filmed in hurricane-damaged South Carolina and hired dozens of locals who had lost their homes. The movie earned $63 million and received 7 Oscar nominations. The Directors Guild of America finally recognized her, making her the first woman ever nominated in their 44-year history. However, the Academy Awards still didn't nominate her for Best Director. People were outraged when they learned that 94% of Oscar voters in the directing category were men. In 1995, Barbra directed a concert special for HBO and became the first woman to win the Directors Guild Award for television directing. The show was a major production, with 11 cameras, 125 crew members, and 223 camera setups. All this was done while Barbra battled crippling stage fright. She had forgotten lyrics during a 1967 concert and had avoided the stage for 27 years. The HBO special brought in 26 million viewers and made $93 million. During the award ceremony, Barbra pointed out that only 3.7% of TV directing jobs were held by women. Her win came 25 years after she first challenged the DGA on that very issue. Barbra's personal life was often difficult. She married actor Elliot Gould in 1963, and they had a son named Jason in 1966. She cancelled a $1 million tour when she found out she was pregnant because she wanted to focus on being a mother. She often brought Jason to work with her. However, the marriage struggled. Gould had issues with gambling and drug use, and he even sold their belongings to support his habits. Barbra was worried about the impact on their child. They separated in 1969 and divorced in 1971. Years later, she met actor James Brolin on a blind date on July 1, 1996. Both were in their mid-50s and had gone through failed relationships. Barbra had been divorced for decades, and Brolin had just ended his second marriage and was in serious debt. Their friend Linda Bruckheimer set them up, though both had cancelled on previous occasions. Brolin was supposed to meet another woman that night but changed his mind. Nervous, he took a Valium. Barbra expected a rugged man with a beard but found him clean-shaven for an acting role. They ended up talking for 6 hours. Later, they discovered they were born only 3.4 miles apart in Los Angeles. Within the first 30 seconds, Barbra asked him, "Who messed up your hair?" She didn't mean it harshly, but it hit Brolin hard since his ex-wife had never commented on his looks in 11 years. He almost walked out but stayed because something in her eyes pulled him back. That night ended at 3:27 a.m. with Barbra asking for a lock of his hair, which she kept and framed in their home. She later admitted that just 17 minutes after meeting him, she felt he was different from the 28 blind dates she'd gone on in the past 3 years. Brolin tried to propose 3 times. The first was 87 days after they met, in a hot air balloon over Napa Valley. He gave her a 3.9-carat diamond ring worth $250,000. She said no, due to a 2-year rule she had after a bad past engagement. The second proposal was on New Year's Eve in 1997, where he played her favorite childhood song and proposed in front of 14 friends. She said no again. The third proposal worked. It was March 15, 1998, during a picnic at her Malibu home. He gave her a 24-page letter with 98 reasons they belonged together. At the time, he didn't know that she had been secretly engaged to another man when they first met. She had ended that engagement after their 5th date. They married exactly 2 years after their first date, on July 1, 1998. The wedding cost $1.4 million and took place at Barbra's Malibu home. Security was extremely tight, with 37 guards, a no-fly zone, and non-disclosure agreements with $250,000 penalties. The ceremony began at 8:47 p.m., the exact time they had first met. There were 15,000 white roses and orchids flown in from 4 different countries. Guests included Tom Hanks, Oprah Winfrey, the Clintons, and Marlon Brando. Barbra wore a gown with a 27-foot train. Brolin wore an Armani suit with diamond cufflinks. Barbra even wrote a song for the ceremony called "I've Finally Found You," performed by a children's choir from her foundation. At the reception, Brolin gave a speech at 11:43 p.m. with exactly 273 words. Barbra had it framed. He said, "Every night is a new adventure. Sleeping is a waste of time. I can't wait to see her again in the morning." He had struggled with insomnia for 27 years, and Barbra became his cure. They had spent 642 nights together before getting married. They shared poetry, did crossword puzzles, and told each other stories they never shared with anyone else. That night, Brolin played a piano piece he secretly learned called Barbra's Lullaby, purposely misspelling her name as an inside joke. John Travolta later revealed that Brolin had kept a journal of every day they'd spent together, which he planned to give her on their 25th anniversary. They reached that milestone in 2023. From the beginning of their marriage, they kept separate bank accounts. They called it bifurcation. This idea came from Brolin, who had lost $3 million in his second divorce. They even split dinner bills every Tuesday. Barbra was worth $400 million, and Brolin had $60 million, so this helped keep things equal. They only shared one account with $800,000 for household expenses. In a 2023 interview, Brolin said this system helped prevent money arguments that destroyed other Hollywood marriages. During the COVID-19 lockdown, their relationship became even stronger. While many couples struggled, they fell in love all over again. They spent 425 nights in a row together. They woke up at 6:45 a.m., meditated, made breakfast, and completed 37 puzzles, one for each potential year of marriage. They watched The Crown and Bridgerton twice and even acted out scenes in costume. They wrote a 278-page journal during that time, which Brolin hinted might become a memoir. Their $35,000 Swedish mattress became their headquarters. They called it the boardroom, and it had special support settings, document holders, and laptop stands. Barbra even wrote songs for her 2018 album while lying there. They spent 4 to 6 hours a day on that mattress. Their bedroom was soundproofed at a cost of $175,000. Brolin said many of their best ideas came from that quiet space. When they fought, they took long walks. They had strict rules, no phones, deep breaths every 30 steps, and they walked in opposite directions on their 3.2-acre estate. After 17 minutes, they returned and wrote journal entries about how they felt. They used this method at least 217 times. Once, during a disagreement about Barbra's book in 2019, they took 7 walks over 3 days. Even on vacation, they asked hotel staff for separate walking paths. Brolin said walking helped their brains calm down and solve problems naturally. Barbra stayed deeply committed to her passion for women's heart health. In 2014, she launched the Fight the Lady Killer campaign after learning that heart disease kills more women than all types of cancer combined. She helped fund a heart center at Cedars-Sinai and gave a major lecture at the National Institutes of Health in 2018. She pointed out how women often receive worse heart treatment than men. Her efforts helped reduce the death rate from 1 in 3 women to 1 in 4. She also spent 10 years writing her memoir, My Name is Barbra, which was released in 2023 and was 970 pages long. She wrote the entire thing by hand. She had been thinking about the book since the 1990s, and even Jacqueline Kennedy had encouraged her to write it. Critics praised it for its honesty and engaging style. Brolin joked that she probably wrote most of it in bed on their fancy mattress. As of 2025, Brolin is 83 years old and still working. He told People magazine, "I don't plan on stopping." He was filming Ransom Canyon and narrating the final season of Sweet Tooth. He joked that while Barbra made fewer movies, he made up for it with quantity, 97 films and 600 hours of TV. He said what excites him most is the next project. Ransom Canyon brought him back to his Western roots, playing a rancher named Cap Fuller, who dies in episode 9. He wished the character had lasted longer. The show was Netflix's first major solar-powered production and was filmed across 150 miles in New Mexico. At the same time, he finished narrating all 3 seasons of Sweet Tooth. He reflected on his long love for horses and said directing was still his favorite role, but acting continued to energize him. Thanks for watching. Keep it and stay tuned. Like and subscribe our channel. Have a good day.